I'm thanking everyone who joined me today, because what really makes us teachers is you as participants, as you as for us to be instructors. We need students. We need somebody who listens to us. Without you, we're we can't do that. So that's I'm really would like to thank everyone who joined me today. As you know, some of you took classes with me, and I was really so. Anna, could you please? I don't know. I'm sorry. I don't know how to turn on my presentation. Thank you very much. So as you can see, I'm an instructor of Neurographica, and before that, I briefly introduced myself. I was a full-time artist for the last 12 or even 13 years. But before that, my life was involved much more. I was an engineer and financial professional, and later even professional in communications. It related to writing, editing, publishing. And also I was in graphic design and web design. So that was my past experience. And at the same time, my other interests also include yoga, meditation, healthy lifestyle, and probably in mindfulness, and mindfulness in everyday life. How I came to Neurographica, it was after my career with, at that time, over 11 years in painting icons and acting pair paintings. At that time, I was already teaching art. But what I realized, that interest obviously was going down. And it's understandable, because people are not it's a like a barrier to enter. Even if it's icon painting, it's very similar to what you can experience as a, let's say, such a transformative arts, but at the same time, it would take you a long time to learn anything. And also, it's very culture specific and religious specific. And as my career turned from artist into teaching, I started looking for ways how I could teach art. And then, after some life crisis in my artistic life, in my art life, I found Neurographica, and I realized it was like missing link that made connection between art, psychology, self-improvement, and realization, self-realization. That's what attracted me. And the most important component for me, it was that I would be able to teach. I was very much taking it. And if that I wouldn't say that I fell in love, but I felt very strong connection. And also, because this field is so new, I thought it would be very much accepted and welcomed in North America. I'm talking about 2019. It was 2 years ago. 2 years ago, exactly when I joined the instructor's course. Before I took a level 1, which is user course, and then specialist course, and then I realized it wasn't enough, and I switched to the instructor's course. So many of you heard that there's also being a coaching. Yes, I have a coaching certification, but I don't use it. I was interested in Neurographica, in teaching Neurographica, and I am interested. I'm an instructor, and that I take that seriously, and that my heart is in teaching. So and I embraced that. From being an artist and becoming a teacher, it took me, I would say, a few years to embrace that new direction in my life. So we were asked to present something that would be about our case, like our case in significant. As I didn't do any coaching, but I would like to share with you my experience as a Neurographical instructor straight after I graduated in 2019. In December, I watched many careers of many neurographic instructors, and many of them, those who became known and satisfied with their professional growth, were very much specializing in some specific area. And I didn't know, I couldn't find at that time what to specialize. And I decided, okay, I will just go and teach all the modules, all the advanced courses that are part of Neurographica program, Neurographic Instructors program. I had a small group, and last year, 2020, exactly this time, we began our journey that finished in December. So that was incredible journey for my students, but also for me, because I realized and I learned so much more by being a teacher than being a student. And I was a good student, I assure you. And I was always a good student, and in Neurographic as well. And in this slide, you can see examples and collage that I posted on my social media network. I took our drawings from every course. As you can see, it's from composition, color, goal, and the middle is in mandala and time. So that's are the courses and our combination. And I can see the progress of them, how they grew from the basic user course, which we started in last March. And then how they advanced in December to timing. And at the end, I have to admit, I couldn't even find anything with their drawings. I had to offer comments, and quite often I didn't, because they were so good. They were drawing so good. There was a transformation happened to me at the same time for the duration of the entire year. And I'm very grateful with that experience. But moreover, what experience taught me at leading a group, going through the entire modules, and it was a huge responsibility. And I not even, I don't think I even enjoyed it so much, because I was also going through changes, not always comfortable. And I always have questions. I was so many questions about those who approached me. They asked whether they could learn. You become an instructor like me, and whether you can teach, whether they could learn in English. And at that time, I had no answers. All I could say, please wait. We don't have any definite dates. And based on the first conference, it seems like the dates are becoming more definite, and soon Neurographica's instructors professional program, 9 months of professional training, will be available to English-speaking people, those who would like, and there are plenty. I'm sure there are many of them. And also, I noted there was a big change. When I started, there was hardly any interest in Neurographica or neurographic art. It became known in like neurographic art. And the shift happened probably about in the middle of 2020. And more drawings appeared on social media networks, and I could see the growth in my accounts, how they grew within half a year tremendously. There's so much interest and so much response. And I'm glad this is happening. But at the beginning, it was like jungle that you can travel only on your own, or complete growth, not in trail, just not even a map what to do. So definitely everything is changing in this English-speaking world with respect to Neurographica or neurographic art. So that we finished that year, but what most importantly I realized is not only the techniques, I knew enough techniques, but what was so important for me is that year that proved that all those external achievements, career, I don't know, what we call money, something else doesn't matter really. What really matters is what's within ourselves. That's why I called my that short presentation Neurographica in Mindfulness. Mindfulness that could be related to what we are within, in our deep within ourselves, whether we are strong enough to continue, where we're happy enough, and where we're joyful enough. So that joy will attract people. That joy, what we contain within ourselves, helps others. And that here proved that many works were gone. We had money when we couldn't spend them, or we didn't have money. But what really matters is who we are. So some of my example of my neurographic art drawings, I do not produce as art, as neuro art. Most of my, it's like practice. My art, I still practice icon painting and extempore painting, and I deliberately didn't want to include my artwork in that presentation. So if those who know me probably know what I'm talking about. They're very two different fields. They do not contradict each other, but they're so different. I felt like it wouldn't be fair to include them, to show them side by side. They are for different purposes. And that's even my audiences do not mix. There's no contradiction, but connection is only the connection that I can see. So that various art was called there. There's work done following tradition, Neurographica. There's pure Neurographica following the basic algorithm or the formula how to create neurographic art on Neurographica. And so what today I would like to include, talking about mindfulness, is NeuroCalligraphy. This is my technique that I developed, and that was a part of my diploma. It was my diploma project when I graduated from professional training, Neurographica professional training. When we talk about meditative drawing and attitude, writing, cursive writing is probably one of the main things that can induce this meditative state. Also, it has tremendous effect on the brain. And if you're interested enough, there is plenty information that proves how cursive writing by hand, that's something that we in our days learned at school. And now at school is completely, it's almost gone from professional curriculum. Now many schools would like to introduce it because of those research, scientific proof how writing affects the brain and why it affects the brain so much and why it helps to develop our brain, like cortex. It's because it engages so many other areas, starting from fine motor skills, like moving with the hand, and connecting, especially with write something that's meaningful for us, like creative writing or journals, something we create. But even writing, if we just copy the text, it still helps our developing the brain, and it's excellent preventative medicine for our demographics. If we take people who are our age group and older, so it's excellent preventative activity. So how I developed that skill? I based it in the art of micrography. It's the art of drawing with letters. I was interested in micrography for years, and I included in my art, in my extempore painting, and I use a Hebrew text from the Zohar, and at that time I was very interested in Kabbalah. So micrography, it comes from small lettering, from micrographia, from the Greek language, and it's a specific Jewish art form, and they use tiny letters to creating images, and in this way they can kind of pass through the second commandment that prohibits creating graven images. And if you can look carefully, those texts on the slides, especially the small, what looks like tiny, like lines, they're actually tiny letters that create images. So on the left, you can see it's from a Hebrew manuscript from the 13th century. And they have also Latin, those two like mandalas, and one of them is a spiral. There are two that's in Latin. And also Islamic. This art have also developed in Arabic countries. They not create images, that they use their calligraphy, creating incredible images. So one of them is calligram, and even in Sanskrit, in Hindu, they use this kind of art that creates images. So that was my technique was based on. And as you can, the next, and I show some examples of my work, including Neurographica and NeuroCalligraphy. So yes, I incorporate the neurographic line, rounding, the basic algorithm, the formulas for creating it, and also the lettering. So some examples, so I included on the butterfly, that's my first attempt to use it as a big, the word evolve hidden in the middle, and a couple of them are from the course that I teach, and I teach this course, and some workshop like the Hanukkah, that was it was a free class that I offered a couple months ago. It was in December. And with this, I would like to invite you to, I will switch my camera so we can start drawing together. So here we are. I use certain tools. My favorite one, if you ask me what I use for drawing, for demonstration, I use like a simple felt markers. And I also use it in the basic user course. This my one of my favorite pencils is markers is Pigma Graphic One. Has a create very nice line. It's not too thin, not too thick. And a nice archival ink. This is a similar one, marker. There's a little bit of thicker line, and it's permanent. And for especially for this specific occasion, I used very simple pencils. That's like Crayola. After a year of drawing with them, 2 years of drawing, they almost were. I have other pencils, and especially for presentation, and I decided to spoil myself, and I bought professional pencils, watercolor pencils from that's made in Germany, Albrecht Dürer, Faber-Castell. So we'll try them today. They're watercolor pencil. So that's about my tools. And before going any further, I would like to repeat something about we're going to use the neurographic line and the principle of rounding. For those who are completely new to Neurographica, that will be helpful. And if this presentation will appear online, then maybe somebody who's watching it the first time, I will repeat what Margarita explained in the previous presentation. So the neurographic line, the basic, it's the line, as you can see here. By definition, it doesn't repeat itself on any segment. This is all different. And it extends in direction where we don't expect to see it. It doesn't mean that it extends anywhere. It has a direction from A to B, but at the same time, since it doesn't repeat itself, there is no pattern. I produce this line with a small micro movement of the hand. This could be like in real life. We are planning this is our plan, how we start and how we want to be, where we begin and where we would like to be. But our life does something unpredictable. We don't know, and like if we advance in the direction where we would like to go. Anything to do like a patterns like this, beautiful ornaments, or like this, are not examples of neurographic line. Why? Because they predict, the pattern is predictable, and we were looking for something unpredictable. And the reason was that we're trying to communicate with our subconscious mind, which doesn't have this logic, that logic of our analytical mind. Again, I can't explain much about it, but anyone who is interested, I offer the basic user course, and many other instructors who offer basic user course of Neurographica level 1 in English. So for now, those who are completely new, well, let's suggest doing it as we are going to draw lines. Just make sure that the line doesn't repeat itself. Just move your hand slightly. Even this even applies to letters that we're going to draw as my technique. Just make it sure that it doesn't repeat itself. At the beginning, it's not easy because we're creatures of habit and we tend to repeat ourselves because it's easy for the brain to reproduce something what it knows. So it's difficult at the beginning, but it becomes easy with the practice. It's another element that I would like to mention, of course, rounding. Rounding is based on the two figures. There's a circle that's associated with everything not positive in life, sometimes even sacred. The sun, the moon, infinity, timelessness. Triangle is also a powerful figure, but it represents a little bit of tension, that sharpness. And that sharpness is, we instinctively avoid those sharp corners. So with the rounding, so we have two lines, for example, like neurographic lines, one and another. When they intersect, they create four angles, and we create this rounding like this. We soften this connection and make this softer transition. So that's why this wide and kind of felt tip markers are so good at the beginning. It's very easy to create rounding with them. Like for example, this is a finer one that requires a little bit more skill. A smaller drawing, and also it's not as spectacular. You will not be able even to see it on your screen. But let's do with a bigger marker again, two lines. Intersection and connection. So what happens in our brain when we can see that this figure of something that we would probably stay away in reality when we see anything sharp pointing at us, we instinctively retreat. But when we see that our hands transform sharpness to something round, positive, it's not as dangerous anymore, our impression changes. And that's the goal of Neurographica. We're not changing anything around us. We're changing our impression. And with this, so I would like to start our exercise. So we've known up. I hope there's no question. And I can see, thank you so much that saying hi, and I'm reading and see. Thank you. Those who took some of my classes, I'm Thank you very much for supporting me in this conference. Okay, so this is my good paper that I'm going to use to draw my exercise. So I suggest any size will do. You can do it as small as or not. First, I'm going to draw a small composition. And I will use a couple of quotes. Oh, before going any further, I have to explain how I do my neurocalligraphy. This is my paper again. Let's say I'm going to write in cursive writing. So what I do with cursive writing, I'm just using the line. So instead of drawing it like this, like a neurographic line, I am going to use it for forming words. Like for example, today, the month of March. And I start writing. And I do micro movement with the hand, producing the neurographic line that has a shape. Here it is. And as you can see, I can do it again. I can outline it, do it a second line next to it. But if I see it corners, if I need, I can round those corners. Yes, it requires a lot of work, but it's worth it. It's also with rounding. You don't need to round every single corner. The rules of Neurographica, especially in advanced techniques, please do rounding as much as you need, as much as you feel. If you feel tension, if you need pressure, do rounding. If not, just continue. It's only on the basic user course where there's a lot of conflict in our figures, those catharses. Probably many of you know that rounding is paramount, which is around everything. Here, you don't have to round everything. Again, and I will use much smaller letters. I will be even less smaller than this. Conference. And of course, I will use much smaller, like finer marker. Like fine pens, like this is a good one. And also I have like a pen that's almost, this is like a 0.5. This is 1 millimeters. Okay, so let's start the drawing now. Yes, I view it from an artistic background quite often, and it seems like in North America, many artists turned to neurographic art and tried to explain it. Also, what's good about Neurographica, once you learn it, anyone can become an artist. It's very easy to learn the very basics, so there is no barrier to enter. You start drawing, and very soon you realize that you can create meaningful and attractive drawings. So first, I will use a couple of figures and a quote. Just something easy. What you seek is seeking you by Rumi. You can use, again, this is my selection. You can write anything you want. It's not a problem. It could be a journal, it could be a prayer, it could be a greeting card, anything. Actually, the students who took this course, they use it as greeting cards, as meaningful greeting cards. So, and I will, for simplicity, composition, a simple one, I will use two spirals, like ones with the pencils. One is like this, and the other one is coming out of it. It's something figure like this. So you can see with the pencil, and I will erase it later. I take and I start writing. So instead of creating a neurographic line, I create a text with it. So it's a more sophisticated neurographic line. What you seek is, and I link all the words together. Okay, I turn it, seeking you, and I can write the author's name here in the remaining. Okay. So now I have another quote, for example. Also, I use a shorter quotes so we can have enough time to copy it. And I continue from here. Let's, for example, the healthiest response to life is joy. A little bit too big. E. So one more before we go, I can change here. I used as a line. Okay, I created my text with a line. If you want to create a line, you can draw the line first and attach your text to the line. And that's why I continue. Oh, hell. See. What? Turning it. To life is joy. Okay, I think will be enough for now. So what else you can do this? This is the beginning of our composition. So it's not the drawing yet. Those who know, you can include connected with the neurographic lines. So to add the background, you can add different figures. You can include it in a neurographic drawing. So if you have any figures, any abstract drawing, they can add as well a text. It doesn't have to be all text. It could be just a line or two or a meaningful word. I can also create I like it. I may create. Okay, maybe I want to include a circle here. At the center. So what else I can do with this text? I can probably go again for the second line to check whether I would like to do rounding just in text. Again, don't forget this is a the neurographic line. Okay, rounding. And I can connect this sentence. It sits on the line. So I can connect it with the line. In some places you can do it around the corners. So why is this meditative drawing? And again, when you engaged so much, it's automatically grasp your attention. Writing in general is a challenging task. Writing on some unusual way, it's even more challenging. To complicate the matter, you can write upside down, you can write back and forth in reverse and using a mirror. That will be very excellent exercises for the brain. Also, while using the neurographic line, if you, like for example, affirmations, you can use it for affirmations, and in this way to make your affirmations writing stronger. Then they are not just saying it, but writing it. And all these other rules that we studied in the Neurographica and in connection with the neurographic lines and the property applies here to the text. So example, here's one word and I can just include one letters like big ones and create as a additional background image, just a background. That will be the main writing. Let's say if I have O here, I can create, I will put let's say joy. And I can create them, connect them as much as you can. There's no real rules about it. Here's example, a sticking corner, like something you could represent like sharp corner. No problem, I can connect it and round the corner. So I apply the same rules as we apply to Neurographica. In general rules with respect to the formula, the algorithm, the line, the composition, and the colors. Those who know. I can include extra lines. Since this line starts from somewhere in the middle, I can take it outside like this. If you would like to hide what you're writing, you can add extra lines and I'm sure nobody can read it. So there's plenty of room with this one, with this technique. I know that it's almost over. We have about 15 minutes, and I would like just to add colors. And yeah, and then you can, and I will be happy to answer your question. When I will finish my drawing, I will include it on my Facebook page and my Instagram, so those who follow me will definitely publish it when I finish this. Plenty of work to be done with this one. Coloring. Coloring any color that you can. Just follow your intuition, I would say. If we're talking about joy, I will probably start with some yellow, like nice sunny color, like today's weather. Well, weather is probably in North America, where it's still day. And I overlap with colors. I have techniques that I use for coloring. They're just general coloring techniques. As an artist, I have my own set of techniques, and one of mine is I overlap the colors, and also they're not necessarily constrained by shapes. Somebody's comments, that's a great way to write poems in circles. It's actually, there's some techniques, some writing, shaped poetry that were written in certain shapes. Now I feel like, okay, I have enough red. I'll probably add blue. You don't need to color everything. Just actually the drawing appears light when it's some white space left, and white is also one of the colors. So at the beginning, how I work on the drawings, after creating composition, I introduce colors. Since I follow my intuition, like my sense of beauty, let's say, I try one color and decide, okay, this works. Maybe another color. Okay, let's try another color here. You know, these are watercolor pencils. Maybe a little bit of red. I think this will be my central focal point of my composition. So I can afford to put a little bit of red, stronger. So I will not explain it, whether you would like to include field lines. If those who know you, welcome, but I am not going to add too much information regarding it. It's not, I wouldn't say that it's necessary in this specific drawing. Now I'm feeling it's empty and I can start adding lines. Also, with respect to lines, you can experiment with different frequency. These are lines like nice meditative lines. That's probably good for the purposes we call it meditative drawing, creating mindfulness. But if you need to add more activity to your drawing, the lines could be have a different amplitude. For example, like this. So if you wonder why you create double lines, there's no requirement. It's my specific style. And some neurographic artists also do many lines. So it's beginning with my learning the method. When I realized that to create strong effect, I needed fine lines, but many lines. So in general, Neurographica is not minimalistic kind of art, and the rule, the more lines, the better. Yeah. Anyway, I will be working on the text as well, because in my specific the case, this one, the focus is on the quotes. And thank you very much those who enjoyed this presentation and found this technique useful. Thank you. Thank you very much for your kind words. And with this, you can do as much as you can if you need. When I start including the lines, filling in the lines. Again, so those, if you can see, if you feel a bit concerned and bothered by sticking those lines, sharp lines, you can extend them and connect to the nearest line. When I was first experimenting with this technique and I practiced it daily for my experiment, it was my diploma work, I did a research, I realized that my focus became much sharper, like after a few weeks of practicing. At least 4 weeks of practicing gave a very good result. It's almost over. If you have any questions, please, I will be happy to answer while we just spend a few minutes drawing. Okay, so there was a question about requirements for the diploma project in Neurographica. Uh, the diploma was as part of my training, our training as a Neurographica instructor. And that has to be a case, like how you apply it in your, it could be in relation, maybe your professional life or technique, a new technique that you develop. I've chosen a technique and also share your experience in Neurographica. And it has the requirements of writing, I believe, a few thousand words. I don't remember how much exactly, but it was quite a few pages. So, okay, and there was another question. The phrase, which one? I had two. So that was the first one was what you seek is seeking you, and the second one is the healthiest response to life is joy. Question. Well, probably this considered mm, neuro art, but really depends how much Neurographica you're going to include. Like whether you follow the basic algorithm, which is the formula, whether you do all the steps, and it gets processed. So that could be neurographic. I would say neurographic as well, even if it's abstract. But you need to check if you're doing it for a course. You need to check with the instructor. So the question, what was the purpose of drawing in this way? I mean, Neurographica. You mean like those curvy lines? That's it has an effect on the brain. So what the purpose of Neurographica really, if you're asking me about the whole field, is to change our impression that allows us to function better in life. It's like self-improvement. It's a self-transformation. And that's the method that Pavel Piskaryov developed. And he found out on his personal experience and also experience with others that drawing the neurographic line, this curvy line that imitates some events and phenomena in nature, affects our subconscious mind.